Welcome to the Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast. Lieutenant Colonel Ken Crigliano, your co-host. Welcome to the Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Jason Hill, and he is from Verizon. And if you remember, our previous event on Veterans Day was actually sponsored in part by Verizon, and they did a tremendous amount of work helping us pull it off. So we are very thankful for him and his organization. And he has a few special tricks up his sleeve that he does in that organization that everyone who's tuning in will be very interested in. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about what you do over there?
Sure. So, hey, everybody, my name is, like you said, Jason Hill. I currently run our Mid-Central organization in what we call VALOR. And VALOR is our Veterans and Advocates Employee Resource Group. So I'm a former Army. I was a 19 kilo tanker. And then once I got out, started working in the telecom industry. And now I work for Verizon full time. And then in my free time, I work for VALOR. So.
Wow. Can you give a little bit of background on those two entities? Some folks may not understand the difference between them. Just kind of give us background.
Yeah, so inside most major companies, you've got what they call an ERG, or Employee Resource Group. And so, we've got our Native American group, we've got our Latin American group, we've got our African American groups, and VALOR happens to be our Veterans group. So VALOR is actually an acronym within Verizon, stands for Veterans and Advocates Leading Organizations Responsibly. So it's not just a bunch of veterans, it's actually anyone who has a sense of pride in supporting their country can join us as a group in our philanthropic efforts that we put out in the public. So. And internal, of course.
So as a prior Army guy who lived a life of service, was it, when you went to Verizon, was it almost like a necessity to continue serving while in that function, and this is sort of like your outlet?
Kind of, yeah. So how it started for me was I actually got out of active duty about 6 months after the attacks on 9/11. And so I was actually using my GI Bill as in my first semester of college, and walked into the Commons area. You know, they're all standing, I'm going to age myself, but they're all standing around a tube TV on one of the carts. Remember, they'd have to wheel them things out there. And they were watching the news and watching the towers fall. So I immediately got in my car, went home, called the recruiting office, and went down there thinking, I can just jump back in, get back on a tank, get back with my unit. And they're like, yeah, we've got more tankers than we have tanks at this point. So here's your options, line cook and, all the way down the line. It was like, all right, so I can find a different way to support. And so I actually joined the reserves in a signal battalion outside of Aurora, Illinois. Did that for about a year and a half. And then really things just kind of picked up in my personal life, getting married, having kids, my job, and, just felt this desire that I had to do something, right? I couldn't go back in and serve, but I wanted to support in some form. And so joining the employee resource group kind of gave me that outlet. It's not exactly what I had planned, but it still gives me a platform to help. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Bilal and the folks tuning in, he just hit on something that not a lot of people know, but the pipeline of folks who enter military service and then fulfill all of these other industries and positions, our entire civilization in America relies on that pipeline, because they're first responders, they're philanthropists, right? They're charity workers, they're law enforcement, fire, rescue. They never leave the front lines, it seems. And so my buddy Rob Wilkins, who's on the President's Fitness Council, he talks very, very much about that pipeline and how it's very important to keep folks coming in because they do fulfill such important positions. And it's very evident here with you, Jason, that you're doing that even 20 years later, right? I mean, we just last year, not celebrated, but I guess acknowledged the 20 years of 9/11. So
Yeah, we get a lot of guys that come through our military skill bridge program, and I went through it personally. It's like, all right, I got out of the Army. Um, I know how to blow stuff up with a tank. I don't know how that's going to translate into the corporate world, So actually, my first job was as a union operator operating a bulldozer. They hired me on thinking if this guy can drive a tank, he can drive a bulldozer, and trust me, they're not the same. But what we tell guys a lot, or gals that are coming in that have that kind of concern, is like, look, you had instilled in you a set of intangibles that a normal civilian never gets exposed to. Your ability to work in a diverse environment, your hard work ethic, those intangibles that you just have to be a soldier within any branch are embedded in our souls after we get done with whatever our term is. If you're a 5-year guy, a 3-year guy, a 20-year guy, you have those intangibles embedded within you, and those are valuable to any corporation that you work for. So.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, does your initiative help folks who haven't had that experience or gone through that pipeline, right? Does it help them sort of kind of, get exposed to it, benefit from it, from your leadership exposure, or do you help instill some of those values, in that way?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So when I had referenced the acronym veterans and advocates, right? So what we consider as an advocate is somebody whose spouse, or I'm sorry, we have a category for military spouses. So that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. But maybe your uncle served, maybe your brother served, maybe your grandfather served, maybe you're from a long line of military history and are just proud of that fact or want to help the veteran community. They get in on our meetings, they get in on our planning, they see the way we operate, they hear the acronyms we're throwing back and forth, they hear the stories that we're sharing, and they just eat it up. It really does form. Now, obviously, you're never going to form a bond like you would with someone that you served with, especially during a crisis or anything along those lines. But no matter what you're doing, when you come together as a group and you're implementing hard work and you're achieving a goal, you feel a sense of community, you feel a sense of bondship with those people that you're working with. And, the military community really thrives and feeds off of that. And so these advocates that never had that kind of exposure before, now all of a sudden they're thrown into the mix and they get just a small feeling of what it was like for us to form that bond with the people that we served with. And they absolutely learn from it, feed off of it, encourage it. And it's great.
So it's sort of like the Band of Brothers effect, right?
Very much so.
I know that when I show up, like, I deployed earlier this year to help out with the Russia-Ukraine invasion. And, I showed up to the line, at the ops floor, and it's like, look to my left, look to my right. And it's like, we all understood that it's like, yeah, we're going to die for each other, right? Like, we're going to be here and we're going to work until like our bodily functions like no longer work for each other. And we just knew that coming in equipped. So is that something like, yeah, so
it's a lot like that. And I think that's why a lot of military, guys, when they get out, they like, and you see the jujitsu stuff hanging on the wall behind me, right? That's my platoon these days. You see it in CrossFit gyms, and you see it with, any kind of group thing, softball teams even, they get together every Thursday night, but, they're going to war on the softball field. Now, granted, I understand saying going to war is inappropriate, right? Because nobody's going to war playing softball on Thursday night at a park district, but it's that Band of Brothers thing that you talked about before. And in a corporate environment, those opportunities to form that kind of bond with your coworkers are few and far between, unless you're a part of a specialized group, whether it's the veterans group or whatever else is being sponsored within the corporation. And the veterans just seem to know how to adapt to that a little better, given our experience and where we come from.
So what is the gaming community? I know, Bilal, I might have just pre-opted your question there, but what does the gaming community have in store with Verizon?
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty wild story. So an email came through. Again, at this point in time, I'm just a member of VALOR within Verizon, right? So I'm getting the emails, I'm joining the monthly all hands calls. I'm going to do things like the Wounded Warrior walks and things like that. Well, an email came up and just said, we're looking for people to audition to join us in what's called the Verizon Warrior Series. So the Verizon Warrior Series was the original gaming tournament that we had in partnership with World of Warcraft and the Wounded Warrior Project. And we were hosting a tournament that had professionals, veterans alike that were able to join. And so I didn't know any of that at this time, right? So the email came out and said, hey, we're doing this thing. Somebody auditioned for it, and I like to talk. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. And lo and behold, they chose me to be a part of it, which I was very honored. And this was 2 years ago that this happened. So I thought, all right, this is great. Actually, it's 3 years ago that this happened. Pandemic was like just getting into full swing at that time. So originally we had a production crew and Verizon was putting up this big thing for it. And finally they said, well, they had a superstar host. The superstar host backed out. Probably can't even say whose name it is. I can tell you guys offline, but superstar host backed out. So they said, Jason, we need you to save this thing. We're going to have you host it for us. I thought, well, I'm not even ready for that. Not even a little bit. Right. And they said, oh, don't worry about it. We'll walk you through it. We'll tell you what you need to say. And we're going to ship you all the camera equipment. And I'm thinking, you're going to what? So FedEx drops off these Pelican cases. You know, it looks like I'm literally carrying weapons around, right? Big Pelican cases full of lighting rigs, GoPro cameras, the whole nine. I get on a Zoom meeting, and the makeup artist gets on and coaches my wife how to matte the shine off of my bald head. So my wife is my wife is my makeup artist. I'm my lighting rig guy. I'm my audio guy. I'm my IT guy, and I'm doing it from exactly where I'm sitting right now. So wow. It went off well though. You know, they gave me some lines to say, and they bounced back and forth through the gaming hosts that were hosting the actual event itself, and everything went pretty well. It's pretty awesome. So you know, that ends, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, there's my 5 minutes of fame. You know, I got to host this cool thing for Valor, and it was awesome. And then just last year now, I got an email that said, we really love what you did last year. We really appreciate, I think a lot of it was we appreciate you bailing us out and becoming the host, but they said we're doing it again. But this time we got Jay Ellis, who is on Insecure on HBO, and then he's actually Payback in the new Top Gun movie. He's going to be our host this year. So obviously I didn't do that good of a job because they went and got some stud to replace me. So, but I got to fly out there with 2 other Wounded Warriors and really just kind of represent veterans in the gaming community and how we all utilize gaming to, you know, deal with mental health struggles, stay connected back home, just kill time, just get your mind off of things, get into that flow state, that Zen state, if you will, and kind of delete the day. And that's really what it was based on. So the 2 gentlemen I went out there with are just amazing human beings. Sal Gonzalez lost his leg in Kabul. The poor guy actually hit 7 IEDs before the 7th one is the one that actually took his leg. All-star musician, just signed a record deal. He was on America's Got Talent not long ago. Just an amazing person. He's really become a good friend of mine. And then Sergio Alfaro, he was a combat medic. Their camp came under attack. He suffered some pretty significant PTSD and has really been a warrior for PTSD therapies and assistance. Also works with the Wounded Warrior Foundation. He was just on Family Feud a couple of weeks ago. So these guys are awesome, man. They're real big in the community, and they really put together a professional video. We got to fly out to LA. We got to do the whole movie star thing with the real lighting rigs and the real makeup artists. And, you know, we formed a bond through that. We've been great friends ever since. So that was last year, right? And then this year was the GMR and Gold Star Gaming event at Shenandoah University, which, I mean, one of the most fulfilling and gratifying things that I've done in a long time. It was really cool. I mean, Shenandoah University alone is just gorgeous. So just to go visit that on its own was a treat. But then what we got to do with the kids, what we got to do with the gamers and stuff over the couple of days that I was there was phenomenal.
Yeah, so we did ship all that expensive, awesome stuff to Jason. It just didn't arrive in time for our podcast. So that's why his head is very shiny right now.
Blame my makeup artist.
And we didn't pay his wife enough to do that. So, hey, we're just legit real here. But it really is pretty awesome to have you mention our event in line with all of those other ones. So we are.
Look, I think we helped. I think we helped people in the other events that we did, right? I think that message got out. There was a lot of viewership on the videos. There was a lot of feedback in the comments. I think at one point during the gaming live feed, we had about 500,000 people that had checked in. I think the views on it have grown well above 1 million. So the message got out there. I'm sure it reached people. I didn't get any direct feedback. I actually got to hug those kids, high five those kids. I got to, chase them around the place and goof off and hang out with them, and really see the impact that what our efforts had made in their lives. And so that direct feedback, it was the first time in a long time I've gotten that feeling, and it's just got me fired up to do more.
So Bilal, can you talk a little bit? He hit on something we haven't talked about yet, which is I forget what it's called, but it's called when you do something out of the goodness of your heart without any benefit in return, there is a dopamine release, and you know what I'm talking about?
I like to think of as altruism.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but it's like the helper effect or something like that. And you get this just like flush of incredibly good hormones, and it restores your body, and you get really good sleep, and it lasts like days too.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you're talking about, right?
It is. And it's actually a part of PTSD therapy is doing something either for your neighbor, for any type of charitable organization to, like you said, there is a chemical release that happens, and there is a euphoric feeling that you get when you're doing something cool like that. And, for those that don't know what we did exactly, we were able to partner with some of our partners along with GMR and the Gold Star Gaming family to gift these children with PlayStations, Xboxes, and Oculuses, which in my head, I don't know, for whatever reason, this is one of the things that struck me the hardest through this. In my head, I was thinking these kids had all this stuff. They're kids. Most kids have a gaming system, right? My kid has had a gaming system for some time. It might not be the PlayStation 5, but maybe you have a 4, maybe you have an old Xbox, maybe you still have the old Sega Genesis or the Nintendo floating around, but somebody's got something, right? These kids didn't have any of it. They didn't have any of it, and they all lost. In this particular case, they lost their father. Obviously, it could be a male or female, mom or dad, who could suffer in combat. But all these kids had lost their father. And, well, then you think in the back of your head, well, they're getting taken care of. There's life insurance. There's this, there's that. That stuff doesn't go far, man. The reality of it is these are single mothers that are raising, if not one, maybe multiple children at home. And, some may be fortunate enough to have jobs that can sustain the same lifestyle. Others have to struggle to make ends meet. And so to show up with the 3 top gaming systems available and hand them these kids, their eyes turned into paper plates. They had no idea it was coming. They stood up there on the stage, and as I handed them these things, they just couldn't believe that the next one was coming and the next one was coming, and they walked out. It was just unreal, man. Talk about a dopamine 4th of July party going off in my brain. It was awesome. These kids were just, it was everything to them. It was everything.
Yeah. And the emotional connection they'll have with those things too. And it's likely that they'll probably give some of them away too. Right. It's just,
you would think, or just have parties, man. Everybody come over to my house. We'll all play something different. I mean, it's pretty cool.
That frequency, that brainwave frequency of giving those things, they will instill them in there and use it for community and giving back too,
Yeah, I think it's going to be conditioned that, man, remember when I was 12 years old and Verizon, right? They might not remember Jason Hill, but they're going to remember Verizon. I remember when I was 12 years old, I went to this event that was sponsored by the GMR Foundation. It was sponsored by Verizon. We got these gifts, we got these things. I want to pass that on to somebody else. I want them to feel that same feeling I had that day. And for me as an individual, I mean, I bonded with these kids. I feel for these kids, and those kids could call me up at any point and they can come over to my house and have dinner. They can come crash here if they need to. I really feel a sense of responsibility for them, and I only knew them for 48 hours, So
Well, it's really important for some of our viewers too, because we might have viewers who run other companies. And 30 something years ago, when I was a little one, my mom was president of the National Association of Women in Construction, and she would put on these events with Lego, and Lego donated millions of Legos. I mean, millions and millions. We had a truck bring them in, and we would rent the entire shopping center mall. Right back then, we had these huge malls. We'd rent the whole thing and fill it full of 5,000 kids and have the world's biggest Lego competitions. And that company, Lego, is still one of the most highly regarded companies in the world. Makes great movies, all this stuff, and they give lots back. But it just shows the culture of a company that does give back like that, and that creates, employees who are raving, advocates, and people who they touch. Those Gold Star Gamer kids, there's only a few, and they may not have huge exposures, but Verizon doesn't care about that. They know that it's, this is what our mission is as humans, on this planet. And that's really what Warrior Gamer is all about, right?
Yeah. And I think that exposure, and, I'm not in marketing. I don't know all the numbers, but, what does it cost to fly a guy like me out to LA? What does it cost to run a production company for a week? What does it cost to hire a makeup artist, a stylist, the whole production firm? Soup to nuts, top to bottom, what does it cost versus what did it cost to donate the items that you donated that got given away? And what was that measurable impact versus the spend going in the other direction? And, if I were a betting man, I'd say it's pretty damn close to even. And, there was a lot of viewership with the GMR event in itself, right? So it wasn't just the folks that were in the room that saw these kids collect the gifts. It was going on during the live stream. There was several people from Shenandoah University that were present that weren't even a part of the event that were there to view. There were, guests that came to watch the whole thing. It was huge. And then the other cool part about it was you had all the military esports teams there, right? And so you had the Navy team, the Army team, the Air Force. You had all the teams there. They got to watch some corporate guy take care of Gold Star families. Now, I put myself sitting in that chair on the flight home, right? I'm thinking back on everything that happened. And I just thought, how cool would that have been for me as an active duty soldier to know that if something were to have happened to me, that someone was going to be back home taking care of my wife and kids in the way that we were there taking care of them. That impact is immeasurable. So.
That's right. I mean, it's a concern for me, man. Like every day, the number one thing on my mind every day is like, if something happens to me, I need my family to be totally like unconcerned, about survival and love,
Well, you should know that there are good people and good organizations out there who have made it their own personal mission to ensure that fact. So, we try and get involved with as much as we can. So I just did a fireside chat with a gentleman named Safi Raouf last week on LinkedIn Live. If you don't know Safi, you don't know his story, man, please look him up, or you can listen to that fireside chat. The replay's still up on LinkedIn. This guy is to the extreme of what you and I are talking about right now. He single-handedly evacuated over 10,000 people out of Afghanistan after the U.S. withdrew. His story goes so much deeper than that, but that's the extreme side of the spectrum that we're talking about, right? It can go all the way over the other way where you've got somebody who just does Toys for Tots every year, right? But they do that because somewhere along the line, somebody made an impact on their personality, and now they feel the need to do that every year. To, a guy like myself who, spends most of my free time doing some kind of veteran philanthropy work, to a guy like Safi, who literally is changing the world based off of his efforts. It makes an impact, man. It's a ripple. It's a rock thrown in, and those ripples just carry on forever.
So let me, I'm going to show the website for some folks, if that's all right, just so
Please
they
do.
understand what it is we're dealing with. So you guys got me up?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah. So this is the Working at Verizon military website, which is really cool because they have some very interesting facts about, how many veterans are there, right? And they've been very highly rated over the past decade, not just with veteran employee satisfaction, but all employee satisfaction. Military skills matcher, like you said, bulldozers and tanks don't really
they don't really jive. No.
yeah. So this is pretty cool. And to have something, so look, I mean, there's like a little thing here you can click. I mean, it's really cool. And where are you at? Right. We can plant you somewhere where you're already at, which is really cool. I've not seen a website this comprehensive before. Which if someone's looking to do a transition, this is really does make it easy. And your skill bridge, right? And so that is huge.
Yeah, the skill bridge program is amazing. I just had a gentleman reach out to me the other day through LinkedIn, wanted to talk about the culture. He's part of the skill bridge program. And I reached out to a gentleman named Michael McCoy. Michael runs our skill bridge program and our veteran recruiting efforts. Him and Tommy Jones is also in that group. Anyway, he reached out to me. Hey, I just want to talk to you about the culture. I want to talk to you what it's like to work at Verizon. And I laid it out for him. I said, you're expected to work hard. You've got goals that you need to meet, but the support and the culture are unmatched. And had a long conversation with him. Then I called Michael and I said, hey, man, this guy just called me. And he said, he looked him up and said, he started yesterday. And that's an example of what you get when you hire a Marine, right? Because this guy's been, he's still going through his transitioning out of the Marines. He's doing the skill bridge program with Verizon. He's been there for 24 hours and he's randomly picking up the phone and calling people within Verizon to ask questions about the culture. And that just leans on what we were talking about earlier, right? There's intangibles embedded inside of those that served that you're not going to find anywhere else, So hopefully, more corporations see the value in that and exploit those talents.
Cool. So we're running up on a little bit of time here, but I have one of my final questions, which is I ask folks, here at Warrior Gamer, we are sometimes we're gamers, sometimes we're vets, sometimes we're regular folks, sometimes we're spouses or moms or parents of gamers, and so we're all kinds of people here. And but we know that everyone at one time or another has gone through something traumatic, stressful, right? Felt stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. And some people who might be tuning in, right? I mean, this thing will be up online forever. And so if someone's going through something tough, would you be able to kind of give your story on what you went through and how you got yourself out of it and how you got back up to, peak flow state, so that folks might maybe take a nugget to help them out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone that serves develops a level of PTSD. I really do. I honestly do. It might not be the type of PTSD that is popular in the news, where guys were in intense combat situations who suffer from that level of PTSD. But I think anyone that signs that line, that knows that they have committed themselves and committed their lives to something greater than themselves, that deploys in any capacity, that maybe even just serves in garrison, but knows that their number can get pulled at any time. I think that you go from that rigid lifestyle where you're getting up at 4 a.m, you're working out at 5, you're eating at 6, you're checking in with the platoon at 7, and you're doing that. And then all of a sudden you wake up whenever you set your alarm clock and you don't have that structure in your life. I think that forms some sort of anxiety or some sort of depression that a lot of guys have a hard time transitioning when they get out. And so that's what I went through. It came through as panic attacks. It came through as indecisiveness, some OCD stuff, right, where I'm just overthinking and ruminating on absolutely everything. And I was trying to do too much at once. I had this take a knee, drink water mentality about my mental health. It was like, quit being a baby, get up, move forward, keep moving, until it broke. And it was about 7 years ago, where I kind of hit my rock bottom and realized that I had to change something about my personality and who I was as a person, because it wasn't going to sustain much longer. So there's two things that I did. One is I picked up a meditation habit. So I practice mindfulness meditation. Turned me off at first. I'm not wearing patchouli. I'm not growing dreadlocks. I'm not going to dance around in a circle with the bongos. But there are folks out there, like Andrew Huberman's a great example, that promotes, he calls it non-sleep deep rest, which is a meditative state. And you just focus on what's going on internally. That helped get my head back on my shoulders. And then my second piece of advice is find your platoon in the civilian world. Find your tribe. Maybe that's in CrossFit, maybe that's in a gaming community. For me, it was in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I got my son involved with it. It became a bonding opportunity for him and I. We're going 7 years strong now, and I feel better than ever. So I take the time to focus on what's going on internally. I take the time to remove myself from my thoughts and kind of view my own brain from the outside, my own thought patterns from the outside. I make that a habit. And then I found my tribe. My jiu-jitsu family is as much family as my platoon was when I served. And, it's those two aspects of things, I think, go hand in hand, and they're extremely important. And if you focus on those, I think the rest of it falls into place.
Yeah. So I think we all learned, if we went to high school, right, that you can't create or destroy energy. You can only transform it, right?
True.
Somewhere else. And so once you get those habit patterns of, like ruminating or, analyzing, or you need people near you, a community, a tight knit, platoon, a band of brothers or whatever, and you leave an environment or you want to change it, you've got to change the direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of ruminating all these other things, start a mindfulness program so that now you're like, oh, now I'm habit patterning this like meditation process, which if there is one thing I can do during the course of the day, if my life is broke, right, or, computer systems, a whole world crashes, if I can do one thing, it is I meditate, and I do it multiple times a day. And I attribute my world championships to my ability to do mental visualization. So change it to that. And then the second thing is find that close-knitness in wherever you're at, right? Those are the two things that I got from what you just said.
Yeah. And that's, I was such a, what's the word I'm looking for? Cynic when it came to meditation. I literally thought it was for weak-minded people, or it was fine. Or I used to, one of my other favorite ones is, I meditate when when I clean, or I meditate when I walk the dog, or I meditate. That's not meditation. That's relaxation. And I'm sure it's a relaxing thing that you do, but you're not taking an inventory of what's really going on. And it took me a long time to realize that. I can't imagine a day going by where I don't do it now. I feel like I literally need to meditate when I haven't meditated yet that day. And I pride myself on being a burly dude, bald head and a beard. And, I walk around with my chest puffed out, and I'm ex-Army guy, but that is still absolutely a part of my life. And it's something that I try and advocate for with everybody I talk to. So it's awesome to talk to a like-minded person that does the same thing, because it's powerful.
Well, one thing I learned about doing martial arts too is, there is a fact that the more trained you are in martial arts, the less occurrences of violent activity that you cause.
Yeah.
So I believe in Bilal, back me up, because you're the one with the thing on the wall there. Tell me about the mindfulness attributes that you've developed in your martial arts, and your ability to restrain and control your emotions.
When you do your training, that's the first thing they teach you. It's not the punches or the kicks, it's the self-control. Funny enough, for fun, there was a self-defense class that was happening on campus, and I told two of my buddies, we already knew self-defense. We're like, hey, let's just go, we'll learn something new. And the guy who is leading it, he's a Krav Maga expert. And he said, can anybody guess how many fights I've gotten into? Immediately, I looked around. Nobody was going to answer. So I raised my hand. I'm like, you didn't get into any fights. I know you didn't. Correct answer. It's because every time a fight would happen, he avoids it. Self-control.
That's right.
Have you guys heard this quote from Jordan Peterson? It's I had to pull it up so I would get it word for word here, but it's a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. And I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. And I train the kids I help train the kids at our jiu-jitsu school. And that's something we instill in them as well. And our kids aren't the kids you have to worry about. It's the untrained kid that doesn't understand the damage that he could cause. That's the one you have to worry about. So yeah, you guys are absolutely correct.
Well, they feel like they got to prove themselves too, right? I mean, like we don't have to prove ourselves. If someone's mouthing off, you know, it's just like, I don't have to like fight you right now to like prove myself, right? You just like,
yeah. My son's 12 years old. He gets picked on at school and he's like, seriously, like, I'm tired. I just grappled for 2 hours last night. The last thing I want to do is fight you. You know, if you want to fight me, just come to the club on a Tuesday or a Thursday. I'm there, you know, like it's awesome. So.
Right. I did this post a couple months ago. I actually fought a burglar a few months ago that was burglarizing the neighborhood, and I was in total control of all my emotions. And I remember like milliseconds being able to be like, okay, if I do this move, I could probably like paralyze this dude, or like, you know, whatever. Let's just like thinking through all of these things. I was very gentle to this big dude. And like at that point, like I really understood he was up on methamphetamine, had mental disorder too. And everything I did to this guy, he just popped right up, and it was like a scene.
Yeah, we always love it at the jiu-jitsu club when we get like the 250-pound bodybuilder that comes in there, you know, and we normally send like the 150-pound guy at him, you know, and for the first 3 minutes of a 5-minute round, this guy is just going hard, you know, and little 150-pound guy will just block and move positions. And then for that last minute and a half, that 150-pound guy will turn it up. And there hasn't been a single guy that came down to the club that didn't walk out, signed up, bought a gi, ready to show up the next day. Like they all get humbled and impressed by it. So
yeah, it's good being humble. We talked about that before, right? VALOR gaming, getting humbled.
It's a little bit more difficult in the gaming sphere since it's all anonymous. It's another thing we talked about, but you know, making sure that you remind yourself, hey, there's a person on the other screen, and then there's you. You're going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. We're all here to learn. That's the most important thing.
All right. So, do you have anything else, Jason? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up.
No, you guys have been fantastic. Thanks for giving me some time tonight.
Cool. Well, I do want to remind everyone tuning in that Verizon was an absolute essential component to our event on Veterans Day. And as you heard today, their kindness and giving spirit to these kids with no expectation of return absolutely demonstrates what's at their soul. And people like to say big corporations, blah blah blah, but corporations are people, and there's a lot of people, and there are a lot of moving parts, and one little thing of those moving parts could destroy the whole organization. And for them to be able to carve out time to send folks around, is just a testament to the kind of folks that are running the organization. We are deeply grateful for what they've done for us, and we hope that we can get them on board for more and bigger events as we have scheduled for the coming years. So we're very, very thankful for that. So Jason, thank you so much for your time on a late evening. It's a holiday weekend too, so we are very thankful for you taking some time out for from your family, for us as well.
Not a problem, gentlemen. Thank you for all you do.
Well, I know you have to sometimes keep it quiet over there, but got any few parting words?
Yeah, I do. Well, I appreciate you coming out as well, especially when you talked about kind of the mentality that you had to bring about in order to get yourself out of a dark place. And I think when it comes to mental health, I see this a lot on social media and out and about. People just kind of use it as a buzzword. You kind of use it as a band-aid solution. Oh, your problems will get better with mental health, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people get turned off from the idea. And I'm with you. I'm also a dude with a beard. I'm very much in touch with my
Yeah.
masculinity, and to hear somebody like yourself, who's like far more masculine than me, in my opinion, and
Oh,
to talk about meditation, to talk about mental health like that, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people watching tonight.
I hope it does. I really do.
I tell you, it takes a very in-tuned masculine man to say that I went through some hard stuff. I almost fell off the edge, right? I looked
Yeah.
into myself. I seek peace with meditation, mental visualization. It takes a lot of self-discipline. I mean, it takes a real man, a real woman, a real person to stand up and silence themselves and look inward and look in all the dark places that are there, shine light on them, and work on them. And that is if someone's out there and they're going through something, do not struggle in silence. Do not suffer in silence. Seek out friends. Call us. Okay. Seek out a community. Like, open yourself up, because every human being, I don't care what you see on the news or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, these things, social media, everyone's going through this. Okay. So open up and you'll connect more. And that's the way, that's the path to healing, as you can see here. All right. Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast, over and out.
Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast, out.